doing your sadhana, then whatever genes you were before, had before, propensities you had before, they'll come up again. That's called punarmuchika bhava, again become a mouse. I'm not going to tell that story because everyone knows that story. But then it comes out again. Like Prabhupada, it was interesting. When Prabhupada was first dealing with us, and we were all hippies before, most of us were hippies, and when when the men started to have a little hair on their heads, like 2 weeks more than 2 weeks growth, Prabhupada would call it hippie seeds. It's interesting. Hippie seeds, what's wrong with a little hair? It's like, you have great devotees with more hair than that, right? Like Goswami Babaji Maharaj had certainly more hair than that. And you find many great devotees, especially during Chaturmasha. Actually, Prabhupada one time said when the Western devotees followed Chaturmasha, sometimes he called it, because they had so much hair, Chaturmess. Because they would grow their hair. You understand, Chaturmess means 4 messes. Anyways, so Prabhupada was very cautious about people falling back into their old habits. And of course, with the hippies, their old habits was growing long hair. There was part, and even had a musical called Hair, right? Where everyone was chanting, hair, hair, hair this, hair that. Right? Does anyone remember that? Yeah, hair. My mother took me to see that when I was young. I was shocked. But in the middle of the musical, everyone took their clothes off and was walking around naked on the stage. So anyway, so I was shocked. I was from a protected family. Not like nowadays. But so anyway, Prabhupada considered just a little sign of someone's past characteristics coming back. He considered that a danger sign. Can you imagine that? Hair, just a little hair. He said, hippie seeds. So Prabhupada was very cautious about people falling back into their old habits. So we have to be very careful to always stick to our process of Krishna consciousness to remain fixed in Krishna consciousness. We should be afraid, as Prabhupada said, afraid of Maya. Don't be afraid. Like Prahlad Maharaj, okay, same thing. That Prahlad Maharaj was saved by Lord Nrsingadev. And Lord Nrsingadev said, what do you want? Of course, Prahlad Maharaj said, I'm not a servant, so I'm not asking for anything. But he said, I'm not afraid of your form of Lord Nrsingadev, but I'm very much afraid of your illusory energy. Interesting, isn't it? Prahlad asked for other things, like to save his father, to save other living entities. But the only thing he asked for himself was not to fall into Krishna's illusory energy. So here's a great pure devotee who was saved by the Lord multiple times, who the Lord appeared just to protect him, and he's afraid of Maya. And we have not had any of those experiences. Lord Nrsingadev never appeared to me to save me. Krishna has saved me in different ways, that's true. But still, we're not afraid of Maya. It's interesting, isn't it? So that we should be afraid of these past genetic or conditioned characteristics, or from past lives, subtle body characteristics coming up. And we should be very strict in our performance of bhakti. So any questions or comments about these things? Yes?
So what is our position on eugenics? Is it desirable or despicable? Or?
You mean to create a Superman or something like that?
Yeah, or nothing.
Well, I think we have to be very considerate with who marries who. As far as the people who are young who are going to have children, yes. In the Vedic system, you have this pratilom, andulom marriages, as far as compatibility. And in Prabhupada, pratilom means where a lower class man marries a higher class woman, and andulom is the opposite. So there was that consideration. There was, Prabhupada said the son usually takes after the mother. There may be some exceptions, but Prabhupada said that's generally the rule. So there's all these considerations with compatibility. It's not when people get married. That's why in the Vedic system, usually the marriages were arranged by elders. In every village you had a Brahmin matchmaker. Even Lord Chaitanya's marriages were arranged. He was married twice. First wife, Lakshmi Priya, passed away due the separation, but it was arranged by a matchmaker, a Brahmin matchmaker. You know what I'm saying? There was practically in every traditional culture you had a matchmaker in the village, isn't it? I know in Europe it was like that, in the small village. They had one person who arranged marriages in a detached way. Because when people arrange marriages, what do they call it in India, love marriages, then people just don't have the common sense to arrange the right situation. What do I mean? I mean, when one is in love, let's use that expression, when one is enamored, the brain is exactly the same as one who is snorting cocaine. That may come as a surprise to you, but that's a scientific fact. They've done analyses of these things. You know, the brain scan, CAT scan, or MRI, and exactly the same. So one loses a sense of judgment. Just like we talked about Kekasi and Vishrava, right? I mean, definitely it was a big mistake. I mean, Vishrava was just like so upset his whole life because he had married this lady and had all these demoniac children. And Ravana took away the kingdom from, we're talking about Lanka. Lanka was originally in the hands of Kuvera, and Ravana took it away from Kuvera. So he had one son fight with the other son. So this poor Vishrava was in such anxiety his whole life. Can you imagine that? And then ultimately, Kaikasi was in anxiety because her children were killed by Ram. So, you know, what a disaster. Of course, it was the Lord's pastimes, I understand. I mean, there's another level of understanding that you know, the Lord wanted his associate, Jayan Vijay to appear, Shravana and Kumbhakarna. And later on, Surpanaka actually got liberated too. She became Kubja in the next incarnation, and she got a chance to be with Rama, Krishna. You understand? That's interesting. So, I mean, there's a happy ending to the story, but there was a lot of anxiety in the meantime. Both Vishravas and Kaikasi were in anxiety over the whole thing, because you know, the children just didn't act the way they wanted to. Kaikasi was in anxiety because Vibhishan was a good guy. He said, "Why did I give birth to this devotee? Oh my God!" And anyway, so therefore, yes, we should be concerned with breeding. Not as something demoniac, not that we go into the laboratories and, you know, just like we do test tube babies.
Yeah, they're sterilized. There was, I mean, you said Hitler was into eugenics, but it was not only Hitler. Yeah. The whole Western world was...
The whole Western world was into eugenics. They started in America and Great Britain. In America, they were sterilizing people. They thought...
Denmark was actually the first country to introduce eugenics. America
was, yeah.
1919.
Yeah, they were sterilizing people that they thought didn't have the right mentality, that shouldn't breed. I mean, eugenics was way before Hitler. He learned it from the Americans. And the British also were into it too. The British published, there were some scientists who published books on it in the UK. So, you know, everything good comes from the UK and America. So, anyways, I think we have to be concerned with you know, the proper type of offspring. Like, of course, Prabhupada did say if people have the proper consciousness, they'll attract the proper type of child. But marriages should be considered in terms of varna. I mean, otherwise it's just a disaster. You know, if you have a Brahmin lady marry a Shudra man, I mean, or vice versa. You know, they may be in love in the beginning, but then after a few months, forget it. The new factor wears off, and then they're stuck with Ravana. I mean, Ravana was handsome. He wasn't just like some ugly guy. Most of all the princesses that were kidnapped by Ravana, because he had thousands and thousands of princesses, they all loved him. Because he couldn't force himself upon any princess because he had been cursed that if he ever did that, because he did it one time, he would die. So everyone had to accept him voluntarily. All the girls had to accept him voluntarily. So, anyway, I'm going to probably have to end. One quick question and then we can end the class.
thought Ravana had 9 heads.
10 heads.
10 heads.
10 heads. Goldasa agreed with 10 heads, yeah.
Okay. How can that be beautiful?
No. He manifested them when he was angry.
Okay.
It's not that every minute he was walking around with 10 heads and put 10 hats on, 10 sets of glasses, you know. It's whenever he wanted to, he could manifest it. And also he chopped off his heads 10 times. Anyway, there's a whole story in my mind. But he had 10 heads. And he could have a whole GBC meeting when he wanted to. They could all discuss different things. What do you think about this? Okay, I think it's a good idea. Should we kidnap Sita? No, I don't think it was a good idea. Yeah, one more question.
I'm just wondering, if Ravana, he cannot force himself on a woman, why did he kidnap Sita?
Because he thought she would give in to him. He was envious of Ram, and she was very beautiful. And he just thought, she's going to eventually give in. So he kept trying to convince her. He could try to convince in different ways. One time he produced an artificial head of Lord Ram just to try to convince her that Ram was dead. And then he tried to attract her with wealth. He said, look, you marry me, you got this whole kingdom. I'll become your obedient servant. I mean, what woman wouldn't want that? I mean, if Ravan, who is more powerful and handsome, super handsome, I mean, he's like the Terminator or whatever. Something. Just imagine for those of you from India, Bollywood star, actor, Vivek Oberoi, or, you don't know him, no one knows him, or some Hollywood, or, some famous person, I don't know. I don't know anybody nowadays, except that I just know India, So anyway, so imagine that. He comes up to you, and he has so much wealth, a palace of gold. And he's going to become your servant. Wow. Forget about that other husband I have. I mean, most ladies would be like that, right? Not every lady, but it takes a lot of self-control. Or even with a man, let's say a beautiful lady comes up to a man, he's married, ready to a nice chaste girl. Then, someone comes up, like an Apsara comes up. Apsara? Urvasi comes up, obviously he may forget about his wife. So Ravana was at that level, even higher, that he was so attractive. So he was sure that Sita would actually forget Ram. Of course, she was so chaste, there was no question in her mind of forgetting Ram. But he had this pride. He knew he couldn't force himself, and he didn't. He would have died. And actually, it wasn't even Sita he kidnapped. We kidnapped Maya Sita, but that's a different story. So anyway, we have to end class because I got to go right now. All right, so Srila Prabhupada, ki jai. Or Krishna, how do you got to go?
Krishna, Goswami ki jai.